last night was one of the most miserable football experiences watching Sunday Night Football that I can just like think about, especially because someone's fantasy output was reliant on Javonte Williams, who Nathaniel Hackett, like, did Javonte Williams sleep with his wife or something like that? He's clearly more talented than Melvin Gordon, who fumbled twice.
Yeah, and it's like it's not a coincidence anymore. Like he has a ball control problem. Like he cannot hold on to the ball.
I was flabbergasted, and I understand that maybe if you're doing some sort of like power running play, Javante's a smaller guy, so it's not necessarily the person who you want in there for those kinds of downs. But I am flummoxed by his like commitment to a running back by committee thing, and they had the third string guy in there as well at certain points on third down situations. I'm blanking on his name. If you could look that up, Bradley, but he Nathaniel Hackett, putting aside the awful game management that he seemed to have improved this time around, because Hackett voluntarily hired someone to help with the clock, aka ownership was like, all right, you better fix this or you're out of here. That's my guess. I don't think it was Hackett's decision. But what's the guy's name?
Mike Boone. He's an
Mike
undrafted
Boone,
guy out
right.
of Cincinnati.
Yeah, so like beyond the clock management stuff, the game management stuff, timeout management, I am perplexed by his understanding of the strengths of his own players. It reminds me of past, terrible Giants teams, or Matt Nagy, for example, who doesn't seem to understand who is good and who isn't. And I can just see from the eye test that Javonte Williams is a better player at this point in his career than Melvin Gordon. And like, he doesn't seem to understand how to feature them. Russell Wilson. All right, let's put up these memes here. It's like, Russell Wilson, I thought he would have I didn't think the Broncos were going to make the playoffs, but I thought that Russell Wilson would have a decent year statistically. He's even more washed, it seems like, than I thought he might be.
Say it.
It's all right. It's all right. That was the Matt Barnes clip a little bit, but he doesn't seem to be able to throw over the middle, and Nathaniel Hackett is not scheming guys open outside the numbers. And so it's really just jump ball attempts. I had the same problem, honestly, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the way that any downfield play is just a 50-50 ball along the sidelines. We're not going to try to get anybody open. No route creativity when we're going downfield over 20 yards. It's just, like, Cortland Sutton did catch some balls, but the idea that this offense, which does have some playmakers and has Russell Wilson, your $250 million quarterback, on that side of the ball, is putting up the number 11 points, but 2 of those were a safety, or putting up these kinds of numbers. It's deeply concerning, and I understand they're 2-1, but my confidence level with the Broncos could not be lower right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2-1, but they won this game 11-10.
Yeah.
And Russ, and some people in chat are saying, which I do agree, there was a little bit of some Russ ingenuity towards the end of the game. He had a few scrambles. He still looks a step slower than he used to.
Yeah, he had that pass to Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, the shovel pass.
Right,
yeah.
when the pocket was collapsing.
Like, you could see that there was some proficiency, some like guile in his play. But the point is, that should be throughout the game.
Yeah.
That should be all 4 quarters. He's putting that on in the final drive of a game that they're up by 1 point, and it's 11-10.
Runner pass.
Runner pass.
Runner pass. You're not calling out runner pass.
27. Runner pass.
I mean, he has the swag of this is like what 9th grade kids are saying to each other on the sideline.
Yeah, it's like, we'll confuse him. We'll get him off there. And also, his post-game remarks of him being like, "This is championship football." It's like, dude, you're either a full-on psychopath, or you're in such firm denial about your circumstances right now that like you were able to put on that face. I would, if that was like another quarterback, they would have been like, "Hey, like, we absolutely sucked today, but we at least got the W. A win's a win."
And honestly, I mean, I understand that the 49ers have a good defense, but this is not the this is not an aberration in terms of the play over these past first 3 weeks, guys. The personnel on the Broncos side is not fitting well into what Nathaniel Hackett is scheming up. And that's exactly what a good coach is supposed to be doing, playing to his players' strengths. None like Javonte Williams should be out in space. Why is Russ not more like going out more on bootlegs? Or I understand he's lost some steps at this point in his career, but he should be like maybe running a little bit more just to pick up
and
some
like
easy
scheming
yardage.
it up for him to intentionally be running.
Yeah.
Like to actually like do stuff where he is like drawing, he is actually shooting through gaps and stuff. Every play looks the same.
Right. There's no rhyme or reason to the offense. And Russell Wilson, if you make his legs just a little bit of a threat, then, maybe a safety has to spy on him or a linebacker. And then you have one fewer guy in the box. And so you can get the run game going and start to establish those kinds of things. It's like basic fundamental things that I really thought Nathaniel Hackett would have, given how I thought the offense was really efficient in Green Bay. And the fact that he was the guy responsible for taking Blake Bortles to the AFC Championship game. But no, and I think Russell Wilson's play, we're going to have to see who's more at fault as time goes on. But it's really a race to the bottom with both of them right now. And it's hard for me to gauge what is what. I'm not crunching film every day, but for my TV viewing perspective, it's both of them who are really failing the rest of their team at this current point.
And the crazy thing is clearly the defense is not a problem.
Yeah,
Bradley Chubb looked pretty.
Surtain
Surtain
great.
is great. Chubb just looked really frisky in the sense of he had to drop back in coverage, and he took on some kind of impressive snaps for that big of a guy to drop in coverage and be pretty nimble in doing so. Randy Gregory is still looking phenomenal as he did in Dallas. Like the team they gave up 10 points. And I'm not saying, the Jimmy G led Niners offense is super, super formidable given what we saw to them. I mean, he literally, if he did not accidentally give up a safety, he would have given up a pick six instead. And with that snap he had in the end zone. But this guy, as you've said, was supposed to be the QB whisperer. He turned water into wine with Bortles to at least get them to the with another great defense, get them to the AFC Championship game. Rodgers said Rodgers I think has been on record saying he missed him a lot. Like he's missing him a lot in that having his presence in the locker room in Green Bay. And by the way, like tick on my agenda of how talented Rodgers is. For sure.
Like,
he's gone, and look what's happening. I mean, the Bucs game was a rock fight, but last week wasn't.
Yeah.
But he was advertised as the guy who would be able to rehab and manipulate this offense into something that Russ would be able to, quote unquote, cook with. And it's completely rudderless. It's completely uninspired, and and
it looks like this
stagnant.
Yeah, we have some memes of what people are saying. They let Russ cook. And this is what Russ is cooking up, I guess, right here. I mean, I guess I missed this. Like, it seems like it's the new Tide Pod challenge, but chicken and NyQuil here. If you have a sensitive gag reflex, you might want to turn away. But this is what Russell Wilson is cooking up in Denver.
Past, and usually I use about 4/3 of the bottle, and if it's your first time doing this, you can get away with using about a fifth. Season that NyQuil in there just at the right temperature. You don't want to let it sit there and sizzle for about 5 to 30 minutes. Make sure you're constantly flipping
Okay, turn it
over
off,
the chicken.
turn it off. I started to get my eyes started to get watery just like watching the NyQuil sizzling in the pan. But I was laughing at that, and then there was this other... People were just going nuts with these memes. Let Russ cook. Here's some of the cooking. Oh, my God. Oh, man. Oh, God. And honestly, if he wasn't just such a cornball, I mean, maybe I'd feel a little bit worse about this, but he was telling everybody and leaking to the media that it was all Pete Carroll and it was all his fault, that Russell Wilson is unable to fulfill his full potential. I understand, like, hey, his agent's going to do his part and he's going to push that narrative to the press. And I also understand that this does not absolve Pete Carroll of all of the criticism of how terrible that offense is. They have decided to still maintain, like, play football like it's 10 or 15 years ago or worse. They're not actively trying to get creative on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what you get, honestly, when you have a kind of more stubborn, old school defensive head coach, which I think they're going a little bit by the wayside because of how the NFL has structured itself to be more offensively focused. But so those criticisms are entirely valid. And I thought that the offense was holding Russell Wilson back. But maybe it's just the offense was bad and so was Russell Wilson last year. We don't he seems completely like freaked out in the pocket, unable to let plays develop, and the offense has no rhyme or reason to it.
And we were talking about this, from week one, after week one, and we were like, it's one game, obviously, and then last week happened, and then this week happened, and at this point, there's 17 games in this season. There's not 82. There's not 162. There's a small sample size from the second the season starts. So if I'm a Broncos fan, and this is the first 3 weeks of the season with a new coach, my $250 million quarterback, that is someone who will be essentially impossible to get off the books for a few years, and with a completely new ownership group, I'm not feeling particularly good about where this team is going. And I'm not feeling good about how tempered my expectations were going in, that there were so many prognostications that this would be a dynamic pairing, and that a few players on the offensive side would make a leap. And I'm just not seeing that, except for essentially Javonte Williams. I mean, Jerry Jeudy is so physically gifted and simply cannot hold on to a football.
Yeah.
And like, if that's the case, like, if
he's okay. I thought he was pretty overrated coming out of college, but like,
I just mean in terms of frame and speed, you would just think this guy you would think he could have potentially been what Jalen Waddle is now. I'm not saying they're one-to-one comparison. I'm just saying in terms of production, and he's just not doing it. Like a team that commits harebrained penalties like this, that has poor clock management and game management like this, and also is not getting what they're supposed to be getting out of a significant portion of their salary cap, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
And if this continues, I don't understand how that new ownership group will be able to justify keeping Hackett. And also, if they're going to use a scapegoat, it's not going to be the guy who's going to cost them $250 million over the next 4 or 5 years. It's going to be the coach that they can get rid of and then find one in the offseason.